Hi, my name is Wendy Ann Clark, and this is my channel, Walking in Wisdom. We live in a crazy world, and many people believe crazy and very unbiblical things. And so here I bring teaching stories, examples, strategies I hope will encourage you to walk in wisdom and to live your life in alignment with the Word of God. And today's topic is think before you comment. James writes this in James 1:19 through 20. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Proverbs 13:3 says this, whoever guards his mouth preserves his life. He who opens wide his lips comes to ruin. Proverbs 17:28 says, even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he's deemed intelligent. Proverbs 10:19 says, when words are many, transgression is not lacking, but whoever restrains his lips is prudent. Ephesians 4:29, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear it. Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Okay, these verses are all talking about speech, spoken words, but I think they apply equally to the things that we type, that come out of our fingers, that sometimes it's spoken, sometimes these are videos like what I'm doing right now, and people are speaking words, and sometimes it's just responses and comments that people are making. And I believe that these principles of Scripture, they apply to however we're expressing ourselves, whether it's verbal or it's typed or it's written or whatever it is. They apply. So I think we're told to be slow to speak. We're told to think about what we're communicating and be careful. And one way to be slow to speak in this world that we live in right now is to resist the urge to comment on something, especially something you didn't read all the way through, or you didn't watch that video all the way through, or you didn't catch, everything. You didn't catch what was going on. You're not sure what's going on. You're still commenting, or you're talking about something you don't know anything about. There's this tendency in our culture for every person to act as if they were an expert on every subject for which they have an opinion. So if you have an opinion, you express it like you're an expert. But an opinion isn't the same thing as a well-supported opinion or an expert opinion. So stop before you comment on something and think and consider a few things. Is it worth commenting? Is it important? Are you bringing something to the conversation? I do think it's good to comment when you want to, when you can, when you've got something to contribute, because it does help those people that you like to watch if you comment. That's fine. But are you bringing something to the conversation, something important, something positive? If many people have already said what you're saying, is it worth saying, especially if it's like harsh or negative or a criticism of some sort? Maybe it's worth saying, maybe not. Are you about to present yourself as an expert on something that you really don't know very much about? Resist commenting on something that you didn't bother to read the whole thing. Or a lot of people just comment on the title and they don't read the article at all. There's an attached article. If you're not going to go to the attached article and you're just going to comment on the title, I say resist doing that. Or you just watch a little snippet. You didn't watch the whole thing. Or get a sense of the whole conversation. You may not need to watch the whole thing to know about one subject. Say a video is talking about several subjects and you only really want to talk about this one. That's fine if that's all that you watched. Also, resist commenting on something that you just learned about 5 minutes ago. You don't really know very much about it. Someone brings up a topic and you go, oh, wow, that's really interesting. You look it up. Read a paragraph or two on Wikipedia or something. And then you go back and say, da 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 da. And it's like, you don't really know much about it. There's other people that know more than you. Just let them have it. When Charlie Kirk died, I was very, very shocked by it. And I posted, oh my goodness, who would want to kill Charlie Kirk? I loved Charlie Kirk and I was serious. And I had been watching Charlie Kirk for years. And I thought he made responsible arguments and talked respectfully to people and he listened to them. And I had no idea in that moment that not only were people going to argue that Charlie Kirk was a terrible person, but they were going to celebrate his death, argue that he deserved to die, that he was somehow asking for it. And some people that I know, or I've known, maybe I haven't seen in a while, but I know, said, oh, he's this bad guy and he's this and he's that. And then they quoted things and I knew somewhat they just heard a snippet because it was out of context and I knew that's not what he meant. And these people were commenting without really knowing anything about Charlie Kirk. Christian people did this. And people are still doing this, by the way. they heard something and then they have a view of Charlie Kirk and then they go off and they might have watched a clip that makes him look a certain way, but I know they didn't watch the whole thing. Now, I can't defend Charlie and say that he never said anything I wouldn't agree with, but I'd watched him for years, so I knew who he was at least for a long while. And at this point, I think there's no excuse for people who are just responding to clips and little things taken out of context and they haven't watched or read the whole thing. And there's no excuse at this point because you could take the time. If you're going to talk about Charlie Kirk, you better take the time to find out who he was and what he was like. And if you really have an opinion that he deserved to die, I think you're an ignorant person. I really do think you are. You may disagree with his positions, but he was not a bigot or a hurtful or harmful person. You might not agree with him. That's not a reason to kill him. So by now you could have gone back and watched the entire quotes in context. You could get a better sense of what Charlie Kirk actually said and what he meant. So if you're still just watching snippets and forming opinions, just stop it. Just stop it. When you run the risk, if you're a Christian, okay? If you don't know the Lord, do whatever you want. But Christians, people who say they believe in Jesus, they say they're following the Bible, they say they're walking with the Lord, when you run the risk of slandering another person just out of ignorance about them, then just stop. Just don't say anything. You don't need to step out and say something about someone you just heard about 5 minutes ago. That's just ridiculous. Very often, I can tell that some people, they're just responding to a headline on the front page and they didn't read the article. Okay, and I suspect that many headlines are set up to be deceptive or to get people to make these drive-by comments while know nothing about what's going on. Sometimes if you read the article, it goes a completely different direction. There's no support for that headline you just read. So stop doing that. Stop just reading a headline. If you don't have the time, the energy, the interest in reading the article, just move on. Just go somewhere else. Just don't stop and make comments. There's a lot of profit to be made in simply getting people to react, whether positive or negative. So a lot of times headlines and they're just set up to make you react. So my encouragement to you would be to practice withholding your reaction and stopping and thinking before you react. Or never reacting, I don't know, just stopping and thinking. It's common for people to comment and they comment so quickly, they react so quickly that they've missed sarcasm or they've missed irony or they've missed that this whole thing is AI, it's not even real. So when you encounter a source that you aren't familiar with, scroll down and see if it says anything about AI created image or about being satire, especially if your first feeling is outrage or shock. Because if it's trying to stir up outrage or shock in you, it might just be performative. There might be nothing real about it. Know that anything true that is outrageous or shocking, it's true, and it really is outrageous or shocking. It's going to show up all over the place, not just on one site. So if this is the first time you're seeing it, you've never heard it before, they're claiming that everybody knows it, but you've never known it. I mean, that should be a red flag. Of course, just because a lot of people say it doesn't make it true. There's a whole thing about the media just quoting bullet points that they all say the same thing that aren't true. But if you've only seen something once, at least that should be a red flag to you. And if you aren't sure, don't comment and don't share. See, when you comment on things that are just not true, it raises the visibility of them. More people will see them. If you like, if you respond, more people will see them. Don't share something that you're not sure that's true. Oh my goodness. Because you're gossiping online. You're just a gossiper. especially if it's something critical of somebody, slanderous of somebody. Be careful about what you're sharing. Try not to share untrue things. Also, when you're making comments, think about the person you're responding to and try to picture like talking to an actual human being that's like in the same room with you or sitting across the table or you're having a cup of coffee. This is especially important if you have a negative reaction to someone you don't even know, or someone you haven't seen in a while. And your reaction is, oh, I can't believe they said that. Stop and think, okay, hand them the cup of coffee, sit down at the table, read again what they said, think about how you would respond to that person if you were looking in their face, because it would be different. And you may decide, I'm going to let this pass. There's moments when I could be sitting and having coffee with somebody. They might say something I don't agree with, and I might let it pass. Might not be worth it. It's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. Think about what you're hoping will happen when you post a comment or a disagreement. I mean, do you picture persuading the other person over to your side? Do you have an idea of what would make that happen? It really doesn't happen very often on social media. If you disagree with someone, consider asking a good question instead of arguing. Not a gotcha question. Ha ha! But a question in which you're really seeking to understand how that other person is thinking. Because when you ask a question where you're trying to understand how the other person is thinking, you ask a question in such a way that the other person must think. Think about, what's my response to that question? If you ask someone, why does this bother you? And you really want to know what about this bothers them. If the person's an honest person, then they think, why does this bother me? You see, we're bringing about thought into the question. That's something that you can do. Thought into the conversation is what I meant. Thought, thinking about things, stopping, slowing things down rather than speeding things up so that we have actual conversations about things. Be curious and really try to figure out why someone thinks the way they do. Sometimes I encounter people on social media who are so rude and so foul and so many things. And I try to think, what kind of leads them to be that kind of person? What kind of leads them to have that kind of reaction? I don't know, but it's worth thinking about. Do take the time to comment when you have words of praise or encouragement, because recognize those aren't always so prolific. There aren't always so many of them. If you have something positive to say, it does help a person on social media when you comment on their content. Be encouraging if you have something encouraging to say. Most comments tend to be critical rather than encouraging, just in general. Here's another suggestion. All of my things are my opinions, my suggestion. You don't have to agree with me. Unless the post is specifically about how someone looks, I'd avoid commenting on a person's physical appearance, good or bad. It comes off creepy at best. Or at best, it comes off distracting, but creepy at its worst. It's like, ugh. Or it's like, wait, sometimes it's just mean. Why are you commenting on people's appearance? Comment instead on content. Some people will tell me what they thought about what I wore or what they thought about how I look or how old I am or whatever. I don't care. I'm saying things. Are you interested in what I have to say or you don't? And if you're just commenting on my appearance, even compliments, I'm like, it's not something I'm looking for. It's not something I'm particularly interested in. Think about claims that are being made and make comments that make sense with what are the claims. What do you think about those claims? Not just how do they make you feel. That's how you feel? What do you think about? Take the time to give thought to the tone of your writing and how you might come across to someone who's reading what you post and someone you know and someone you don't know. And recognize that writing is more difficult to communicate clearly what you're thinking. So give thought to it and be cautious. If you have to choose between maintaining a relationship or being an expert or being right, choose relationships. Choose relationships and friendships over being the expert or being right, especially about things that don't particularly matter. Stop following people who drive you crazy and tend to stir you to react without thinking. Sometimes people will say, I can't believe I can't believe this person keeps showing up in my feed. Why do I have to see their posts? Blah, 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 blah. You know what? It's easy for you to not see people's posts. It's easy for you to block them. It's easy for you to unfollow them. It's easy you to scroll on by. So that's just ridiculous. If they drive you crazy, don't read it. If you have a lot to say, you're going to type pages and pages and pages and pages, pages. Try typing it somewhere else and sit on it for a little while. Like type it in your word processor or something like that. Come back to it and see if you really care. Do you really want to post that much? Can you narrow it down? I make it a habit to restrict myself from interacting with someone. My friend posts something, and then friends of that friend post something. I try not to do too much interacting with the friend of a friend. I try to post on a friend's post, and I try to not post pages and pages. If I have pages and pages of what to say, it probably belongs on my own page. You know, and if someone says on my own page, wow, you talk too much, I'm like, I don't care, it's my page. I can do whatever I want. But I don't want to take over a friend's page and be talking back and forth with somebody else, especially in a very negative way. And if you look back in the past and you can see where I've done that, you could say, well, it took me a little while to learn how annoying that is and just to avoid it. So I don't want to be annoying if it's optional, if I can avoid it. So these are some of the things I try. These are some of my ideas. Do you have some ideas of your own about commenting and navigating social media in a way that's beneficial to all of us? Do you have boundaries or guidelines that you set for yourself when you're interacting on social media? I hope I said something that you found helpful or encouraging. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like it, hit like. Share it if you think somebody else might. Hit subscribe if you just want to help me out on YouTube. Hit that notification button if you want to be notified when I post new content. And please visit my other channel, which I've had for a little bit longer, called Transformation, about being transformed into the image of Jesus. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.